Hey everyone. Okay, so to start this episode, we get a look into a part's past, and as I had said when covering this in the manga, his backstory is really the most atypical for a serial killer. Abusive parents, experimenting with dead animals. Like, these are the things that would are basically a typical diagnosis for a serial killer. But as I also said when I cover this in the manga, there is that one little twist that's very specific to, shall we say, Japanese writing sensibilities, and how that relates to a part is that, well, yes, it was all those things that would define him as a killer. You could almost say what actually pushed him over the edge was the weight of expectation. The idea that he must be like everyone else. Like, I don't know how, like, it's one of those things where I don't know how much this idea has improved over the years, but if at all. But it's pretty much it's a pretty much well documented case that Japanese society very heavily believes in the idea of conformity. That being Japanese isn't so much about the individualism and much more about the collective, and that is what Apart's father was pushing him to be. Not even necessarily to help him, but just for the misguided belief that it would make him normal like all the other kids. Even in the backstory itself, he didn't really even make a genuine attempt to help his son, be doing only the bare minimum at best. And I don't think Apart's father even did that much. If I could, like, even did that much, frankly, because the only thing he did is take Apart to the doctor. That's really the only thing you could say he actually did for his son. So while it doesn't excuse any of Apart's actions, it's really no wonder Apart himself turned out the way he did, because he was never allowed to figure out what kind of person he could have been versus the one he became, which is just a man isolated from the rest of the world, unable to, as he would often say, just really connect. Like, he didn't have he was never really given that chance. He was just always labeled as one thing, which is not normal. um, Aside from that, though, not much more to say on the backstory, but I will say there was definitely a bump in terms of direction and animation with this episode, because just in Apart's backstory alone, they actually kind of added to the gore factor of his backstory a bit. Like, it was already gory. Like, Apart's backstory in the manga was already gory, but don't get me wrong. But in the very specific moments, like the scene where Apart kills the animal, or when he slits his father's throat, like in the anime, there's practically pools of blood, whereas in the manga, well, you do get more or less the same thing. This is the same thing. You can almost say this is also a time where it feels like the manga actually pulled back on being overly gory, and only kind of and being kind of reserved in that. So it's like, as small of a thing as it is, I do kind of weirdly appreciate the fact that they actually kind of got added more blood to a lot of these scenes, as weird as it is. Like, I know, I sound terrible for saying that, but it just kind of adds more to the. I feel doing little things like that does actually add just a little touch more to the impact almost. Now, as far as the actual animation quality, this is where things get interesting, because I honestly say there's actually a little bit of an escalation going on here, because I would say for the first half of the episode, the animation is pretty decent, but it's after we get cut to the present where the quality does pick up, and in this case, it's not hard to see why that was, because the second half of the episode is where we get Takamura once again completely aura farming, seemingly helping Taro by stabilizing the tower, and once again, on top of the whole scene itself being badass, like, everything about the animation quality after that did feel like it started to pick up steam. So yeah, regrettably, as much as I would have liked the second half of the show to be consistently better right out of the gate and continue being this consistently good, this is starting to track with my thoughts on the last that I shared on the last episode, which is that I think TMS Entertainment has sacrificed a lot of this arc for the sake of the climax, and very likely the arc to come after this one, because just from the opening and where I am in the manga as well, I'm pretty confident in saying this cour is likely to end on what's called the JCC transfer exam arc, and that arc by comparison is way more action heavy. So while I am a little nervous, while I can't say I'm not nervous and worried about the animation quality even in this second half, the back half of this episode did give me, like, I think somewhat of a better understanding of what might be going on behind the scenes. And also, just more generally, like, I think the thing we need to understand here is that while I'm not trying to make excuses for TMS Studios, you need to understand this is the same studio that right now is also adapting the Dr. Stone anime, so I imagine they're probably juggling a bit of a bigger workload on both these, having to work on both these shows versus just having to work on one or two, just having to work on one, and that's not even to talk about any of the other anime they might be working on. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Blue Sky, Analyst Crunchyroll, Vision for Spell, the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of the Mix signing off. Later, everyone.